Well, everybody, welcome to the awesome journey. And Kelly has internet issues. So hopefully she will come on because this is her spiel. We have Jess and Ben Owen and Chris
What's up?
Hennessy with us. This is going to be an interesting talk because bear with me, I'm doing my technical stuff too. Anyway, there we go. We're going to talk about something we've been talking about, trafficking, which is a conversation people don't like to talk about. Now we're going to talk about the wonderful world of fentanyl, but it's not a wonderful world. People die from it. And these people that are dying from it are children, people that we love, because it just blows me away. I grew up in the 70s and 80s. I was in the bar industry in the 80s, so you can imagine how my party life was. It's not like it was anymore. So I'm going to, as I said, Kelly's got internet issues. We know how that works. And I'm going to, Jess and Ben, if people do know you, but share a little bit of the life that you guys lived in the trap houses, because the three of you all have seen hell darker than people could even imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yet there was a light that kept on getting you out, even though you'd go back, come there. Chris, had his own journey and he'll share that. But yeah, go on, share a little bit about this, about Flanders Fields, We Fight Monsters, the t-shirts, everything that you all do to get this shit off the street, especially where you're from. And you live in Georgia. Explain that you go back and forth.
All right. So the interesting part, Jess and I ended up homeless and addicted on the streets of South Memphis. We could spend 12 podcast hours talking about how that came to be. We've got totally different backgrounds. Oh my goodness, there's Kelly with a clear connection. I love it.
What? Oh my
God. Oh, no, she froze. No, she's back. Okay. So leading up to our addiction, I was a serial entrepreneur for years. I ended up with a prescribed opiate habit for an old Army injury that progressed to prescribed opiates that weren't prescribed to me, that progressed to a heroin addiction. Almost 10 years ago exactly, I got arrested for a whole bunch of stuff. They charged me with like 14 felonies. Which was ridiculous because I was just an addict that had guns in my possession legally. We could go down that rabbit hole, but there's no point. I was put onto the drug court program where I was court ordered into Narcotics Anonymous, which is where I met Jess. I had an idyllic childhood, perfect upbringing. There was no logical reason for me to end up addicted to heroin and in jail and court ordered into Narcotics Anonymous. Jess had a completely different childhood than I did. If you hear her story, yeah, it makes perfect sense. She ended up addicted to heroin, right? Like there was no other path for her to take. But the disease of addiction does not discriminate. So we ended up in the exact same spot. Like I said, I was court ordered into NA. I was not ready to get clean. And so the next 5 years it was a lot of up and down. A lot of I'm trying to get sober, or Jess is trying to get sober. But the long story short, we both ended up relapsing, and things got real bad in 2018, like real bad, to the point that we lost our house, we lost our kids. I don't even know how many times I lost my freedom before it was over with. But we ended up living in a trap house in South Memphis. Starting on January 5th of 2019. And this was not the first time I was homeless in South Memphis, but this was the first time Jess was on the streets out there.
Can you explain for those people that, they see movies, they see them, listen to the media, a trap house?
Yeah, so a trap house, a trap is something designed to keep you from escaping. And I don't know if that's why it's called a trap house, but it fits. A trap house is a dope house. It's a house where narcotics and women are bought and sold. And we had spent so much money at that point in time that we were pretty much welcomed with open arms when we lost everything. And we just moved into the trap in South Memphis. And I mean, life out there, you used the term hell earlier, and there's not a better word for it. During the 5 years I spent in and out of South Memphis, that's what I referred to it as, was hell. It was absolutely living hell. You're stuck in this life you don't want, you don't know how to get out of. There's no hope. You know, everybody that had any faith in you whatsoever has left. The light has left. There is just nothing but, it's like Groundhog Day, only instead of living Groundhog Day like in the movie over and over, you're living hell every day.
While watching friends die at the same time. So you're going through all of this darkness. It's already so dark to you. And then on top of that, you have just multiple people dying all around you, people that we've considered friends and family. And a lot of them were like prostitutes. A lot of them were just criminals. But at the same time, we were kind of just all family because we were all alike at that point. I was never a prostitute, but, you know, we would have prostitutes that, you know, if we had spent our last $5 on like a tiny rock of crack, the prostitutes would make sure that our kids were fed, because we did have a 2-year-old that was out there with us half the time. So sorry, I just cut it.
No, you're good.
No. It allows people who don't understand that life. And unfortunately, it's in every neighborhood.
It is in every neighborhood.
And people you don't even, you know, everybody's so judgmental.
Yeah.
Everybody is.
Well, to bring this home full circle to people that don't get it, a month before I was arrested and charged with all those felonies, I was a business owner with 12 employees and a wife and 5 kids and 7 vehicles and a nice house out on a golf course. Now, I was well on my way to losing all of that before I got arrested, but like, I was Citizen of the Year. I was leading Cub Scouts before the addiction started. I was coaching, you know, T-ball and soccer. I was like the perfect suburban dad. You know, I was an employer. I had it together. And then what started with the prescribed, you know, pain pills for an injury progressed to what we just described. We were living in a trap house watching people die, and that was our life, and we could not get out of it.
Do you feel that when people are prescribed pain pills, because a lot of people end up on the dark side because of that prescription, because the pain, do you feel that the doctors have
culpability?
Yeah, that's the word.
I want to choose my words very carefully here, because I don't ever want to take the onus off of the addict.
And
we're
I understand
responsible for our own actions. We're responsible for our decisions. Plenty of people have been in car wrecks or been shot or had horrendous injuries that necessitated the use of opiate painkillers, and they did it responsibly, just like the doctor told them to. The difference is, not all of us are addicts. Not all of us have that addiction gene. So what I will say is, while I do feel the pharmaceutical industry and medical community play a very large role in this, I think genetics play a bigger role. And so if you have the addict gene, you've got to be careful about what you take. And you need to be very cognizant of that. You know, I just had shoulder surgery, and the doctor is fully aware of my history. My sister-in-law, who I've known since high school, is his assistant. They know everything. They still keep trying to give me opiates when I go back, and I'm like, yeah, it hurts when I do this. They're like, well, it's just tramadol. I'm like, you don't understand. If I take tramadol, I'm going to smoke crack that night. Like, this is where it's going that fast. And I know this because I've tried it. You know, the relapse that sent me and Jess into that trap house in South Memphis actually started when she had a C-section. When James was born in 2016, they put her on opiates, and she never got off of them. Were the opiates necessary? Absolutely. She had a freaking C-section. But some of us are not equipped. We weren't working a solid 12-step program of recovery. We didn't have sponsors, you know, and it went where it went. We ended up where we ended up. So I don't think the medical industry has culpability, but they absolutely play a role. And there's no amount of education that can change somebody's genetics. So I don't know. I don't have the question. I'm not trying to dodge it.
No, and I understand that. And you know me, I interrupt because there's so many people wanting this. I mean, I could be like Chris, which he will share about the rabbit hole. It just blows me away. But Julia wants to know, how do you know when you have the addict gene before it's too late?
That's the really shitty part. You don't. I have a brother we obviously have the exact same parents and for the most part, the same DNA. He's not an addict. He can drink responsibly. He gets to medicate his ADHD. And when he gets hurt, he gets to deal with it pharmaceutically. I envy him. I envy the shit out of him. Jess has 2 siblings. One of them is one of us. You know, she's an addict in recovery. The other one, he can drink. He can, you know, do whatever he wants without, you know, consequence, with impunity. Some of us have feelings that we don't want to deal with, and we have to deal with them. We can't medicate them away. If I take anything that changes the way I feel, I'm gonna overdo it until I finally make the decision.
There are somewhat telltale signs when you're younger, you know, or like we've picked it up because we have so many kids, as a lot of y'all know, and there are certain personality traits that you'll kind of notice that you're like, I wonder if he's going to be one of us. So there are little things like when you just
an obsessive need to control circumstances. That's a red flag.
That would call it OCD. And surprisingly, I never became an addict because I am so OCD.
Anxiety, that's a big one. The inability to accept things. Mm-hmm. That's another big red flag, I think. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to sound all nihilistic. It's not like, you know, you're going to see these things and that's the end, but you just need to be aware.
So Jess, can you share a little bit of your story of your upbringing? Because I know that you really had no choice.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have a choice, but you were in that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was a child, so it was good till I was 8, like from birth to year 8. My parents were great, always in the church. I was raised in the church, which thank God, because that foundation in Christ is what got me through everything. But after age 8, we moved to Memphis. My mom started drinking. I guess, I mean, she has always been an alcoholic, but I never saw her drink until we moved to Memphis. And very quickly after that, it got extremely violent. And I'm talking like hangers, belts, whatever the hell she could find, like lamp cords. I don't know where the fuck she got a lamp cord from, but just beating the shit out of us when we were little. So like, I think at 10 years old is when I started getting very, very badly beaten. So from going to that perfect childhood to just boom, you're getting beat by a violent drunk that you thought loved you. That'll mess you up in the head, first of all. And then, you know, when I was around 14 years old, she discovered crack. I was a crackhead myself. So I know now.
Not at 14.
Not at 14. But now that I have experience with crack, I understand her a lot better. But like once she hit that crack stage, it was over.
It
like,
consumes you as a human being.
That is all she wanted. Like we didn't even have food. I had to steal food to eat half the time because my dad would go shopping and he's still like totally, I've never even heard this man cuss. He's addicted to running. So he's like, he didn't know what the hell was going on, or he just kind of had to numb himself from, anyway, sorry, I'm just going down a rabbit hole, but it was a very bad, violent childhood. And then when crack came, that was all that mattered. And all of our money went to crack. She would take all the food back to Kroger. My dad would go shopping. She would wait till he went to work, take all the food out of the pantry, take it back to Kroger so she could get crack money. And then like the dope dealer ended up moving in the house. And at this point, my dad has just kind of mentally checked out. Like, so it was just kind of us. And he was there physically, just he was not here. So I started numbing myself at 13 years old. That's when at first it was just weed, you know, and some people are like, oh, weed isn't a gateway drug. Maybe for some it isn't. It was for me. It definitely was for me. And at some point that it wasn't enough. And then that led to parties. Those parties led to more drugs and more bad people. And before I knew it, you know, at age 17, I was smoking meth. I was smoking crack. If you put it in front of me, I was going to do it because I just didn't want to be in reality. I didn't want to feel anything. Everything hurt.
Well, and our parents, especially at that age, are the ones that are supposed to protect us.
Yeah.
Are supposed to love us. And I mean, with me, I didn't not, mine was school. I got kicked out of school and stuff like that, but I did my share of my drugs and as a teenager and everything. But mine was at 13 because I started battling the depression at 8 years old. When your family isn't there to protect you and trust you, what do you do at that age? I mean, you do.
Mhm.
However, at 62, I can sit back and say, and you all being parents can probably say the same thing. There's no book to be a parent.
Yeah.
There's just, and our journey, this awesome journey, it tends to get hit with a lot of shit.
Yeah, it's hard being a parent. And we're going through that. It's not as bad now, but we did have a child that actually the one child we thought was going to do like the greatest in life. And we found out that he was smoking weed and that he was bringing it into the house. And I was like, no, I'm an addict. You can't do that.
Doing that.
You can't do that. I'm going to relapse. And we freaked out and he ended up moving out. But we're okay now. I don't even know if he's still smoking weed. And again, I mean, it could be so much worse because he's just smoking weed at his age. I was doing God knows what at that age.
Oh, me too.
So it could have been, it could be a lot worse. And I'm very grateful for that. But you're absolutely right. There is no book on how to deal with that. And then especially like he had good parents, that actually raised him the way he was supposed to. I did it. And I'm still learning. Like I learned from Ben. I grew up with his kids because when I met Ben, I had been high since I was 13. I wasn't grown. I hadn't matured.
Right.
He still has to check me on shit and be like, you can't say that. And
it's okay to think it. You can't say that out
Why
loud.
not? Why not? So, Chris, I'm so bummed because Kelly wanted to be on this, but as I said, it's
Yeah,
sort of
I know
like
it.
hurricane when Jay was on I had the Hurricane Ian coming on. Tell us how tell us your story of how, and then we'll go into the Raven is here. The Raven is
The
here.
Raven is here.
And then we'll go back to Flanders and we fight monsters.
Yep. So like Ben, I grew up in a really good home. I mean, I grew up in a strong Christian home, and like Jess, thankfully, I had that foundation. My parents got saved when I was like 4. I didn't start messing up until I was 24. So I had a 20-year solid foundation of good, loving Christian parents. I started doing meth, and that led to, and I didn't even do it that long, 3 or 4 years. But when you're doing drugs, you do stupid stuff too. So I ended up going to prison. I did 8.5 years, almost 8.5 years in prison, and I got out in 2016.
Can you explain why you ended up going to prison?
Yeah, I mean, it was just all drug related stuff, doing dumb stuff, and you get caught and you have drugs on you and you end up with a possession case, along with all kinds of other, it's just crazy, the stuff you do because you're not thinking straight, right? Fast forward, I got out in 2016, fast forward to March of this year, and my brother was in Phoenix, Arizona working. He was laying fiber optic cable and he died from fentanyl overdose. He bought an Adderall from someone and it had fentanyl in it, and it had something else called parafluorofentanyl in it that is being manufactured in China and coming in through Mexico.
Surprise.
And there's no pharmaceutical use for it whatsoever. It's not being prescribed for anything. It's more potent than fentanyl. And I don't remember how many times more potent it is, but like literally what you can pick up on the end of a pencil is a lethal dose of it. Mm-hmm. So they're mixing this stuff into, prescription drugs, into pills. They're mixing it into coke and meth and heroin and everything else. They're making it into brightly colored pills to appeal to younger users. Just anything they can do to get it into people's bodies. And I'll let y'all draw your own conclusions on why. I have my own conclusions on why, but I'm not going to I don't want to get kicked off of social media.
Why?
So I'm going to keep them to myself.
Why?
Like
Because
Ben
it's
said,
a
it's okay to
billion-dollar
think.
company. It's a business for the,
All I'm
you know.
going to say is follow the money and find out
Yeah.
why it's coming in,
Yep.
and
Yep.
why it's being allowed in so freely.
Yep.
So during all that, or right before Eric died, Ben and Jess had been on your show, on this show, and I was like, how the heck did you get them on the show, man? I've been trying to get a hold of them for months. And so y'all introduced us. Ben and Jess were the first guests after Eric died. So it was just like really timely that they were on the show. And then Eric died. You know, we got to talking with Ben and Jess, became friends with them. And I was sitting here texting my sister one day. This was on a Wednesday. And I said, hey, you want to go up there and see Ben and Jess, meet them, get our hands dirty, maybe help, you know, Josh and Chris work on a house or something and just kind of see what they're doing. And she was like, you know, Josh, which is my brother-in-law, she said, Josh and I were talking about this last night. We absolutely want to go. So I messaged them and we're like, hey, we want to come see y'all. What do you think? And they were like, come on with it. So this is on a Wednesday. By Monday, we knew that it was not just a trip up there to go see what they were doing and a missions trip, if you want to call it that. It was a recon mission to figure out the hows, the whats, the why. Well, we know the whys, but the hows and the whats and the ins and outs to bring it back here to Jacksonville and replicate it. And that's how the Raven is here.
Unfortunately, that's what's going to be happening. You guys are, you know, Ben and Jess are the beginning of showing, hey, there's every town has it. It doesn't matter what the town is, what the city is. I mean, he's in Phoenix. The stuff's there. It's coming over the borders. We already know that. Yes, we can go on that rabbit hole Thursday. Like we don't want to talk about last Thursday. But it needs to get fixed because loved ones are getting killed. Yeah. They're taking a pill. They're doing a magical mushroom. Hey, it's organic. Not really anymore. And you don't know what you don't know when you take it. So your brother took Adderall is taking it for his own reasons. And Adderall, everybody, from what I hear, everybody takes Adderall. It's a prescription.
Yeah, and it was bought like he was not taking it because he has ADHD. He was taking it to get spun for sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I had a friend tell me a story about, it was somebody in the medical field. He was a dentist or something, I think. And he had prescribed one of his patients some Vicodin. And he filled the script in-house. Bro had got the pills off the street and that stuff had fentanyl in it and it killed his patient. So this is the kind of stuff it's doing. It's not just the heroin junkie with a needle in the arm or a crack addict smoking crack. It's affecting everyone. And I'm not excusing my brother's drug use, but Eric we called him a pop-up user. He'd use every once in a while and just to have fun. And, you know, he was not an addict or strung out or anything like that. But he bought an Adderall to have a good time and ended up dead behind it. And he had a good job, a good paying job, 3 kids, 11 and younger, and a baby mama. You know, I mean, they were split up, but I mean, from the outside looking in, you wouldn't ever guess that he was doing drugs.
Well, and I don't know if y'all know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cal.
Yes. Let me try.
Okay.
Yeah. So the whole thing with fentanyl that's so mind blowing to me, because after all of this, of course, many of the conversations that we've had, but particularly since your brother, Chris, that I've been looking into things and certain data, no shock to those of you who listen that I looked into data. It's astonishing, like how much the movement of fentanyl has increased. In the last 4 years in Arizona alone, it went from like 0 seizures in 2019 to 2022. It was up to 1.4 million seizures of fentanyl. So that's not even saying how much is getting across and how many kids are being killed by it because they just need to touch it and it will absorb or that was my understanding and part of it, because I think 2020 or 2021, there was 33 kids under the age of 3 that were killed in Arizona alone from fentanyl. And it was generally from folks that weren't knowing they were taking fentanyl. They were just buying the Adderall or the what have you off the street for a good time, or teenagers who were doing teenage stuff.
But isn't there a machine down at the borders that are crushing them before they come over the border? Did I miss something? Did I? You like that, Ben?
Yeah, we work with Homeland Security investigations and Customs and Border Control pretty frequently, and you know that they lament that like they'll send us news of a big seizure or something, and I thank them profusely because it makes our lives easier. But they lament that on a good day, they stop 10% of what's actually coming across. Most days it's about 5% of what comes across. And they've had single seizures that contained enough fent to kill the entire population of our country.
Yeah.
So like we're not going to stop the flow. I hate to say that.
No.
We're not. And that's what's so depressing about this. You know, 5 years ago when Jess and I got clean, we were talking before the show started, fent had made its entry into South Memphis. It was not coming across the border at that point, at least not to supply where we were. It was getting stolen from pain management clinics. The dope boys would have a girl get a job there and they would steal it.
Right.
And that would go on until they got caught. And then, you know, but that was then, you know, fent was getting mixed into the heroin supply then to stretch it, to make it go farther. Today, I don't remember the last time I've seen heroin. You know, we're out there where the dope's getting sold all the time. There is no heroin in Memphis anymore. And I think it's probably the same everywhere. It's all fentanyl. And I'll tell you, you know, you mentioned accidental exposure. That definitely is a thing, and people die from that. But it's not just accidental exposure, and it's not just addicts dying. I can tell you right now of at least 3 murders that we know of in South Memphis in the last 6 months where fentanyl was used to kill somebody intentionally. And it doesn't get written up as a homicide. It's a drug overdose.
What?
Getting away with it. And that's now, granted, these aren't, you know, fine, upstanding, law-abiding citizens that are getting killed. Okay. But street beef is getting settled by giving somebody a hot shot or putting some fent in somebody's drink. And there is no recourse. There is no murder investigation. It's just chalked up to, well, it was junkie and they did dope and now they're dead. And
so in my 30s, I guess it was my 30s. Yeah. Cause I got, drugged from a drink in a bar where they put, GHB.
Gamma hydroxybutyryl.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was drugged, but luckily I was around a whole bunch of people. And anyway, this is what scares me, that this stuff, people are going to go to, you know, these young girls, young men, whatever. The drugs it's a different level now than it was in the 80s, early 90s, that this stuff doesn't just pass you out and then you get attacked or whatever. This shit kills you.
Yeah, you go into respiratory depression and that's the end. Unless somebody's got Narcan handy, and we've heard of cases where it took 11, 14 doses of Narcan to bring somebody back. I mean, it's, you know, usually EMTs give up long before they get to 10, you know, right. Which is sad. That means there's a lot of people dead right now that didn't have to be. They could have kept going with them. So props off to any EMTs out there who kept hitting somebody with that Narcan, because eventually it helps. And then you've got, you know, stuff like xylazine hitting the streets now. I mean, fentanyl doesn't even touch that. It's just weird.
What is that?
It's a horse tranquilizer.
Yeah, it's a vet tranquilizer.
Equine tranquilizer, but it's getting mixed into the dope supply now too. People will always do anything they can to change the way they feel. Certain people, I'm one of them,
of course.
You know? So trying to attack the supply side, man, I'm not in law enforcement, and I'm certainly not capable of controlling a border. So I'm not even going to comment on all of that. It can help. A lot could be done to change it. Let's put it that way, right? We're very focused on the human side of this, the addict side, and trying to control what we can. Because if you cut demands down, guess what? You know, Chris, you mentioned follow the money earlier. The whole thing's a money game. You know, narco trafficking is one of the most profitable industries in the world. There's a reason that there are cartel bosses on the Forbes list today. And I'm not joking. There are
No.
billionaire cartel bosses. Their only income is from trafficking narcotics. And they're some of the richest people in the world today. It's a money game. So if you attack the demand side, guess what? There's less incentive for that supply side. And so from my perspective as a businessman and as an addict in recovery, I'm going to focus on the demand side because I know I can make a difference there because I proved it. I mean, we've unequivocally proven that.
So, Chris, you're heading to Memphis to get bylaws, to understand the whole setup. You've set up your nonprofit. And tell me about, you're working with your sister and brother-in-law. How's this been for you? Because going back to Kevin Donaldson, when Mike killed himself, and we're not fine. None of us are fine. We go through the emotions. Some of us do. Some of us will just go down to that rabbit hole and not want to feel the pain. How's this after your brother died? Because you're a close-knit family, and deciding this is what I'm going to do. This is a fight that I'm ready to fight.
It's been a wild ride, man. It's only been, let's see, Eric died in March. This was probably April or May when we decided we were going to do this. And it wasn't like we decided. It was just like we knew this is what we had to do. This is what God was calling us to do. And it's stories like hearing somebody reached out to us, somebody here in Jacksonville, her sister was in Louisiana, died of a fentanyl overdose with a needle still in her arm and Narcan in her lap. That's how fast this stuff worked. It wasn't like she didn't even have a chance to hit herself with the Narcan. Hearing stories like that and just knowing that, hearing other people talk about the homeless population in Jacksonville that I had no idea. This stuff is killing people, man, and it's ruining lives. And, we copied the saying from Ben and Jess. They have shirts that say fentanyl is terrorism and wristbands that say that. And I asked them, like, can we use that phrase on our merch? Our designs are different, but they're similar. But that's why we have a shirt that's fixing to come out that says lace up, strap up, we're going to war. Hashtag fentanyl is terrorism.
Love it.
Because
I hate the whole reason why you're doing it, but I like the words.
No, I do too. Like I've done ministry since I got out. I've done prison ministry. I haven't in a few years, but people talk about the fentanyl epidemic. They talk about it, but they don't realize, or maybe they don't want to realize, that it's happening right under their nose.
Yeah.
And talk is cheap, man. Like if you're going to talk about it, then do something about it. Whether it's giving $10 a month to someone to support it, if that's all you can afford, or volunteering, or like something. Like don't just talk about it.
Yeah, we say that a lot too because everybody's a critic, right? Everybody has something to say, but it's like, then do something. You don't even if you can't write a check, give your time.
Yeah,
it's something you can do.
But even if you can't give the time and you can't share posts, let everybody
pray.
Ben knows that viral is huge.
Yeah,
so if you can't afford it, because we know how the economy is, and if you don't have the time and you're not in the area to volunteer or whatever, or it's just not your thing, which is fine, connect with these three or all of us and viral their post.
Yeah, amen.
Yep,
for sure.
Yep, because eventually the work that we're all collectively doing is going to get in front of somebody who has the money to change the dynamic.
Yeah, that's right.
And
I think
you never know who someone's connected to, man. They may see, like you said, they may share a post that they're connected to a millionaire that lost someone for fentanyl and doesn't know what to do. Now all of a sudden they're funding you.
Yep.
Totally. And I want to bring something up too. And I know Ben and Jess have shared about it, but y'all were talking about, y'all were watching people actually die in these trap houses. And now one of those houses that somebody that y'all loved was died in is about to become a home for a mother and her kids.
Yeah.
like out of the darkness and the death is coming light and restoration and hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And are you going to be,
video
are you,
yesterday-
so talk about how you buy back and how you're buy the houses from the drug dealers,
Yeah.
which I love that. It's like, peace out, people. I'm going to give you money, get out. And then if Chris, or is that, what is your plan of how you're going to go forward in what you're doing in your neighborhood or your town?
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, we started, Jess and I, if you've ever heard our story, we had a foxhole prayer, and it was, God, get us out of hell. We'll spend the rest of our lives coming back for everybody we left behind. Well, that's why we started Flanders Fields, which was to help homeless and addicted vets. But we didn't really leave too many vets behind in Memphis. And God reminded us of that promise we made in our darkest hours. And he kept his end of the deal. And we had to come back to Memphis for the people we left behind. And you heard Jess a minute ago, most of the people that we left behind who loved on us and helped us stay fed and clothed and warm in the winter, it was dope boys, it was prostitutes, it was murderers, people that most of society looks at and thinks are bad, but we lived with them and they took care of us and we knew they weren't bad. And so we had to come back for them. And so that work started, as much as we didn't want it to and as terrified as we were of it, it started at the trap house that we lived in. Mm-hmm. So we basically approached the dope boys running the house and told them what we wanted to do. And, we got the, that kind of treatment at first, but we're persistent. And, if you followed me for the last 20 years, when I set my mind to something, I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm very stubborn. That's why I stayed with her after she stabbed me. Right. So, I'm just playing. She did stab me, but I deserved it.
You did.
So we were persistent and we stayed on it. And, over time, the dope boy that ended up arranging things for us, I mean, we helped some members of his family get off the streets. We helped some people he loved get better and become productive members of society and show up for their kids. And dope boy or not, he's human. And that meant something to him. And so he essentially facilitated us shutting down his dope house, taking food off of his table. And we bought the house from the legal owner, and we shut it down. I mean, I'm skipping over a lot of details here because I don't want to screw up what we do, right?
Well, they can also go back to our past shows on our YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. And then we replicated that out. We went to the next block, and all of this has started on streets that we bled on, that we watched people die on. Where we pumped a lot of money into that dope economy. So part of this is like our living amends. We owe it to that community to make it better. And these same streets where all of these horrible things happen, you can drive down them today and there's kids playing outside. There's puppies, like it's amazing to watch. But the cool part is like what we did is replicable, right? Mm-hmm. I almost feel like we cheated in the way that we were able to start right where we knew all the bad guys, but we've replicated it out in areas where we don't necessarily know the bad guys, but they know of us. They know what we're there to do. We're not there to send people to jail. We're not there to shoot people. Right. We're there to meet needs. We are there to shut down the trafficking of narcotics and human beings. We want to see that put to an end. But to do that, and to do that without getting shot in the back of the head, you've got to provide some alternative means of income to the people who are profiting from that trafficking. You also have to get the victims of that trafficking, the addicts and the prostitutes, you have to get them to a point where they're willing to do something different. And there's some finesse involved in helping people find rock bottom. There's a sufficient level of suffering they have to hit. So you can't just be out there making life comfortable for them. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you do have to make life comfortable so they trust you. It's weird. There's a dichotomy there, but it's a dance. It's a very carefully crafted dance. We don't always get it right. But this is a law of averages kind of thing, right? You want to see it moving in a good direction consistently, even though you have some dips and jumps and all that. I guess the takeaway is we're shutting down the dope houses. We're helping dope boys start legitimate businesses. Let's be honest. It does not surprise anyone that a drug dealer is a good entrepreneur. Okay.
Mhm.
So we're helping.
As long as they're not using their stuff.
Well, that's not a good dope boy. That's an addict, right? That's a junkie.
Yeah.
Just like me. And so we got to get those guys help. But you start introducing some economic stability at the same time you're getting recovery into these streets. And a beautiful thing happens. Everybody falls in love with what you're doing. You will always have naysayers. You will always have some of the bad guys that don't want you to do what you're doing. But over time, the faces change. And there's a really cool story that I don't think we're quite ready to tell yet about a guy who tried to burn down one of our houses. And
That'll be in your book.
we need to make sure. I'm not sure it's, but the guy's a convicted murderer. I mean, and we were concerned for a while that I might be his next victim, but we didn't back down. And today that guy is on our team. He's helping us. And that happened organically. It happened by not backing down and helping a lot of people that were very important to him. I mean, he might be watching this right now, but he's.
So Brandy made a point over here, and I pulled the chat over, and I'm not sure she's paired with somebody over on Facebook. It says, give you money to get out. Aren't you supposed to be helping, not hurting others? I'm confused how you're not helping other junkies like you were yourself. I guess I'm confused. I think that's what you are doing. I
don't
miss
the
something?
question.
I don't understand the message.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just as long as I'm not the only one that was a little confused. I think maybe she came in the back end.
I think she came in late. I'm not
right. This is what they are doing. They are helping everybody because they've been there.
Yeah.
Well, maybe she heard the part where we were kind of, I guess, giving money to some of them, even though just to get that trust. But the whole thing is, and at the end of the day, on top of everything, and we're all human. God created us to want connection. Mm-hmm. Like inside of us all, we want that social connection. We all want to be wanted. We all wanted to be loved. And junkie, not junkie, drug addict, murderer, whoever you are, you want some kind of connection. So in order to do what we do, sometimes you need to go buy them a pack of cigarettes. Sometimes, sometimes you have to give something just to get that level of trust, just so they can know, okay, they do see me as human. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there has been a point a few times where I knew that my money was not going to a good place, but I knew the person in front of me needed to feel like a human. They needed to feel loved when the whole world is shunning them away and not even looking at them because they look like shit. They want to feel loved. And so, I mean, there's been a few times where we've had friends, we have prostitutes that weren't quite ready, or we had new ones that we were introduced to from our other prostitute friends. And they were like, she don't want help yet, but please just talk to her. And at those moments, you can't just be like, you need to go get some help, or what are you doing with your life? They don't want to hear that. That's going to make them go the total opposite direction. And I can say the same thing for people, like even in church. People that aren't completely believing in God, you got to bring them in easy. You got to be friends with them first. You have to get that trust connection. So, so maybe that's what she was talking about. I don't know.
Well, but also how you, and I'm going to go over to Chris because I definitely want to talk about it, but that's how you two met at that convenience store. Am I correct? That Ben was not in a good place?
No, well, I met him in NA. There was, I think I know what you're talking about. There was a person at a convenience store, and I think we had just gotten in a fight or something. Ben was off on his own, and there was a person that he looked like shit. That's when
I was ready to end it. I was done. Yeah. This was right before I hit rock. I know exactly what you're talking about. It was right before I hit rock bottom. I was in delirium tremens. I'd already had 2 heart attacks while in alcohol DTs. And I was ready to end it. And I made the decision I was going to go to the gas station. I was going to steal a beer, get out of DTs. I was going to hustle up some dope, and I was going to overdose on purpose. I was done. Jess had lost me. We hadn't had contact in days. I was wandering the streets of South Memphis. And yeah, I looked like absolute hell. And I walked into the BP at Elvis Presley in Bellevue, right there at South Parkway, where Bellevue turns into Elvis Presley. And some old lady just looked at me and smiled and maybe said, "How you doing?" And that was all it took. She made eye contact with me. And despite how I looked, she tried to make my day better. And I made the decision right then. I was like, you know what? I can kill myself tomorrow. I'm going to ride the day out. It's not as bad as I thought. And
I'm going to use the hashtag not today.
Yeah, not today. And I ended up I left South Memphis, I think within 72 hours of that moment, and got clean, and the rest is history. So you never know the impact the smallest act of kindness can have on somebody. It was literally a smile from a stranger that saved my life. And by proxy, all of these other lives have now been impacted or saved or touched, however you want to phrase it, because a stranger smiled at me. And what's really, I think, sad and beautiful at the same time is if that woman was sitting in front of me today, I wouldn't even know it was her. I don't remember what she looked like. I just remember a smile.
Mm.
So Chris, and because I think we have hard stops with you.
Getting pretty close.
I know, babe. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Tell us what's your next plan and what's your blueprint that you're looking at after you visit them in Memphis. What are you going to do?
Okay. Before I do that, I want to touch on what Jennifer Pocock said a few minutes ago. She said, sometimes you don't choose the fight chooses you. Don't, whatever she said. I can't scroll the comments because I don't have admin.
I'll do it.
The fight chooses you.
Yeah, the fight chooses you. Like, we absolutely did not have a choice in this at all. And it's stretching me. It's making me uncomfortable. It's causing me to do things and spend time doing things when I'd rather be sitting at the house watching TV with my dogs. But at the same time, there's a passion there that's pushing me forward. So it's just this weird dynamic. But so, I haven't been in the game since 2008. I don't know anybody in any of the dope houses or trap houses here in Jacksonville. I don't have the rapport. I don't have any of that. And so I don't know exactly how that part is going to work, but we're going to start with the homeless people. And we're going to love on them and take them cigarettes and monsters and food and whatever else. And even my pastor, that just goes to show you, and my pastor, he's an old meth head too. He's been to prison 4 times, but he said, Ben and Jess were right. Like, you need to take them folks some cigarettes. So we're just going to love on them and meet them where they're at. And I feel like God is going to, he's going to open the doors. Somebody from the State Department of Health and Human Services reached out to us that works with a lot of trafficking survivors. They reached out to us after we'd only had the Raven page up for like a week, maybe. They reached out to us on the Raven Facebook page wanting to meet with us. So the day after we get back from Memphis, we're going to have lunch with her. And God's going to kind of steer it. Like, we're just going to start with the homeless people because that's the only place I know to start.
Where are you? Where is Jackson? Where is that in Texas? Where are you close to? It's
in East Texas, 30 miles south of Tyler.
Okay.
2 hours southeast of Dallas.
Okay.
And then 2 hours directly west of Shreveport, Louisiana.
Okay.
Which is kind of nice because tobacco is a whole lot cheaper in Louisiana than it is here because they don't have the taxes. So, like, literally in an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes, I can drive across the border and go get cigarettes. So we're gonna do that.
How can people help you? You don't have your website up, but I do know you have some great swag.
I do.
I did post your Facebook page on my post.
Thank you.
But how can we help you start getting the Raven is here, like we fight monsters in Flanders?
Right now, we're working off a GoFundMe, so I do have a GoFundMe link. And if you want to buy a shirt, we have a link for that. We only have one design now. It's going to be hard for us to sell anything because I set it up through Bonfire. It's a fundraising site. It's going to be hard for us to really start doing the merch stuff until we get the site up and running. So we have one design for the Raven is here. That and the GoFundMe is what we're working off right now.
Okay, well, just give us the links and we'll blow them up.
Okay.
Somebody
Okay.
just said, it's off of somebody's LinkedIn. Chris,
Yeah, I
I'm in
don't know who
Memphis
that
for the
is.
next day. If I can help, please let me know.
Yep.
Oops.
I don't know who that is.
I can't see who it is either, but if they get on my LinkedIn connections and hit Josh Sneed up, get you plugged in.
Yep. 'Cause we'll be in Memphis next week.
Yeah, going back to We Fight Monsters and Flanders Fields, they have new swag. I have their website up. I just haven't gotten to it because I got my move. They've got some great new swag. If you don't feel like having, some people get offended by some of the stuff, but hey, the shit's real. The shit's real.
You know, that is true. And we made a second website that is nothing offensive. It's
That's the one I have.
Yeah, _armor.com.
Yes.
It's all faith-based. And then onceamerican.com is the more entertaining stuff, like the hunt your local pedophile. But
yeah.
And
have you gotten it where
I want to see incarcerated.
But my question is, from a marketer side, have you put the website on the sleeve yet?
Yeah, so the website's it's on the back of the shirts now.
Okay.
But not the old designs. And the reason is because I can't, we don't have any paid staff. It's just us. And so I can't go back and edit all that. Okay. But we did get an updated logo. So the website is on the back of the shirts now.
Well, because when people, and so for Chris, future, when people see the shirt, they're going to want to know where to buy one.
Yes.
And even if you've got a hat with a little bit of the website on the back, you know.
Yeah,
it's all about the marketing and getting people to know.
If we had done that from day one,
well, we learn. I mean, come on, Kelly and I've been throwing this out for what, 1.5 years now.
Yep.
So Kelly is on now, and I'm going to give my girl her show back.
Of all shows, I was like, seriously, this is right here. And you're right.
We've got him coming back in the beginning of September when we come back. Yeah.
Yes. So definitely. I mean, this is one I really do want to follow because, we, of course, when we first had y'all on, Ben and Jess, we talked about how there's many cities across this country that need this in their cities. And now we're actually watching it unfold of how it can be replicated. So this will be a cool thing to continue to share and people to learn from and get them involved in other ways. So I think it's just so awesome to see this happen. I dislike very much how it had to happen or how it got to be. But what a blessing to continue to watch pain turn into purpose and you all making such an incredible difference in people's lives. And Chris, man, God bless you. You know that we're your biggest fans and we're so proud of you and just can't, whatever we can do to help, we will continue to share your message. Of course, along with Ben and Jess, that goes without saying. But this is just so important. And I encourage everyone, like Christy said earlier, even if you can't, purchase some of their rad swag, because it is rad, I'm telling you, do check it out. They're always coming out with something new too. Just share with your network, particularly everybody on LinkedIn, because guess what? Some corporation will see this that has funding and they're looking at their gifting for next year. It is going into the second half of the year, which is crazy to think about. So you can do something. Everybody can do something. You can at least share this message and share what they're doing, share the mission, because that's what we need. We all need to come together to help each other. And I think that's the beauty of all of this, is it is just about community and supporting one another. And I will continue to say with Ben and Jess, who have been sober since 2019, which still blows my mind, of the incredible impact that you have with so many and the story. And I do use your story, Ben, about the lady with the smile, how the smallest things in life make the biggest.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and everybody can be kind. That's another thing that we
It's free.
can all do. So I'm excited to continue to watch this all develop and evolve, and continue to shout your all's mission from the rooftops, because I think it's incredible what you're doing. And like I said, it's a shame that it needs to exist. But you all for making it exist.
Well, we appreciate the hell out of y'all
For
elevating
real.
your voices, and especially for introducing us to Chris. I get asked to do podcasts all the time, and I always try to do them. I love doing them. I'll be honest, I would not have made time to do Chris's if you hadn't told me to. So what a God ordained, I'm so glad that we did it. He's our people.
Me too, man. Yeah.
Do you hear the song from, I forget the movie, Matchmaker, Matchmaker? What was that movie? It's I forget the movie.
Oh, hell,
It's a
I don't
Jewish
know.
movie.
Oh,
But
God, I
it's
used to
like,
know that.
and I don't sing, but all of a sudden it's like, it's all about matchmaking. You know,
Oh,
it's
that's
going
how all
to
of
work
this
together.
gets
All
done.
connections.
It's putting the right people together, and that's, you mentioned, not to hijack and get on the soapbox, you mentioned you hate the reason this had to happen, and of course we do too. But I got to say, the greatest grassroots movements in American and probably world history started from times just like this. Scott Mann has a much more eloquent way of explaining this than I do, but America was in this same motion of low institutional trust and bad economy and all that 100 years ago. And out of that environment was born the Rotary Club, Boy Scouts of America, Alcoholics Anonymous, tons of these grassroots movements that are still here 100 years later. And it's because they're born out of these times where we have to band together as humans and do something for ourselves and do something for the least of us to try to make each other better. So while it does suck, the reasons that we need this work sucks. It's I think the playing field is set for something really beautiful to be born, and Chris is proof that it is being born, and it is growing outward organically, which is what we've always wanted to see.
Yes.
Yeah, love it.
Well,
I love
again,
it.
I'm a believer that God puts us in places for us to be able to help other people, even when we're trying
Absolutely.
to get help ourselves.
Yes, you just got to look for those opportunities. If we're just aware of them, we're going to see them every day.
Yeah, that's the whole thing,
Yep.
being aware.
Amen
So,
to that. And
Chris, I know
yeah.
you, I know, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to do the same thing, saying I know that Chris has to go, so just kind of to do a wrap up of your final thoughts, Chris.
Yeah. Thanks, like Ben said, thanks for having us on and helping us get the message out. And it's just a full circle kind of moment right here. Just the fact that y'all introduced us and just to see where God took it, man. And Chris Smith actually did an initial intro with us on LinkedIn, and Ben kind of blew me off a little bit and quit answering messages. But he did it for y'all, and he did it at the exact right time, because I was booked out a little bit, and it took us a couple of months to get it on the books, and then Eric died, and then just the exact moment, like it was 2 weeks later, I think, whenever y'all were on the show, and it's just a full God moment right here.
God's timing over
God's
ours,
timing.
always.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, always.
That timing, it's never our time, trust
Never.
me. Never.
No.
So my whole thought process, and Kelly and I are usually aligned, because I'm moving, coming back in September and going into the fall, I would love to get Chris on with the three of you, because each one of you all have a story that I've never, we haven't, Kelly hasn't seen that dark side. We've had our own dark side, but we haven't seen where people look down at you. Well, I have at church, but anyway, they look down at you like you're a drug addict. There's something wrong with you. I'm not going to smile to you. I'm not going to give you the time.
Yeah.
And how God said, not today.
Not today.
Amen.
Yep. I love that.
I did. It's honestly, it is Christy and I. That's another one of those things, a God moment of how it all worked out, of how that came to be, and the not today is just such an impactful thing to both of us, and it applies to everyone, because we've all had those days where, you know, maybe not as bad as some, but where we have those days of like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I use Chris Smith as the example of, and I love, you know, I feel like I go to church every time I hear him talk.
Yeah, right.
He gets up and he battles the devil every morning in the mirror and tells him, you're not going to win today. I am, you know, not today. Yeah. And it's such a beautiful anthem for all of us to remember, to ourselves and then to each other, and just to be more kind, because that drug addict that is on the street or wherever is someone's son, daughter, brother, sister, what have you. And it's just had a series of events that led them there, and have some compassion and empathy. It's not like they said, hey, I can't wait to grow up and be a heroin addict.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's such a part to change of how, that's another thing we can all do, is just have some more empathy and compassion for one another, for goodness sakes, and then understand there is a journey and a story to that person that led them to that dark place. And they need help.
For sure.
I love that, Ben, you know, I think the last time that y'all were on, that you made the comment about you all get so many props for having the handout to help people. And you're like, but I'm not the hero, so don't be thanking me. The hero is the one that reaches back up and grabs that hand.
Yeah, dude, it's very easy to stand up here and hold a hand out. The hard part is reaching out, grabbing it, and not letting go.
Amen. Oh gosh.
And understand that your story, and my banner says it all, the scriptures and everything, your story is going to help somebody else. Yeah. Our story is to dance with our skeletons, because Jesus died for our sins. And because of that, we had to go through, you all, Kelly and I, we've all got a story, and you should never be embarrassed by it, because it's an experience that somebody else is going through, and you sharing it allows other people to say, hey, they can relate. I'm not alone.
Yep, absolutely.
This can go on and on and on.
I know.
But I know Chris has a hard stop, and I am blessed by all of you all. I am so blessed to even call you guys my friends. And you
we
know,
feel
we're
the same
here
about
for
y'all.
you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank y'all so much.
Yes.
And we would love to come.
You guys.
We would love to come back on with Chris Smith too. I think the four of us on here, dude, I bet we'd have a blast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, did you? I know Chris Smith in real life.
I know, and I've been reminding him he might make it down to Memphis next week.
He better. He
I
better.
hope so.
And you do know that driving from Phoenix to Memphis is easier than driving from Florida to Memphis. Just saying.
Really?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
I don't believe that's accurate.
I don't have to go through Texas.
No. You know what? I'm thinking of Georgia to Tampa. Yeah, it might be.
Yeah,
I'm
not.
right.
Yeah, I'm not going to Georgia.
No.
I'm going to Arizona. I'm thinking Kelly and I.
Y'all
Road
need to
trip.
come.
Girls
Please
road
come.
trip.
Please come. Please
Yes.
come.
Oh, Ben, it is happening. I put that out in
Yes.
the universe a while back, and it's like, it's so going to happen. And I'm so looking forward to seeing you guys have to do some live streams or I know you'll do some videos or something.
Yeah, y'all, by the way, I'm going to throw this out there. I'm going live every night that we're there. On Saturday night, I'm going live with Jade Rogers to tell her story. I don't know who all's going live with us the other nights, but I will be live at some point every night while we're there.
And that will be on LinkedIn and Facebook.
LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube.
Beautiful. Can't wait.
Yep.
Love it.
Okay.
Oh, you
All right,
guys.
y'all.
Incredible. All the links that we talked about today, to everyone who listened in, we will include them in the comments as well as the post promos. This is the quietest hour I've ever had. And I'm super bummed. So I love you all so much. And it was just an honor and a privilege to have you all three here with us. We just love you to bits. I mean, and are just,
Likewise.
again, so blessed.
Likewise.
All you friends. And, you know, we're here to do whatever we can to help amplify.
Okay, Chris has got to go. It's like he's doing like the PP dance right now.
Well, yeah, people are starting to walk in. You're fixing to get a lot of background noise.
Yes. All right, y'all.
Thank you, guys.